With its warm tropical climate and golden mile beaches, the coastal city of Durban promises fun in the sun. But look a little closer, and a very different picture emerges. Durban beaches are regularly closed to the public, and the reason is no secret. It's shockingly high levels of E. coli readings. It's an environmental risk and a health hazard linked to the sewage. But to better understand this E. coli crisis, we need to go back in time. April 2022. Catastrophic storms ripped through Durban. 459 people died. At least 40,000 were displaced, causing billions of rands in infrastructure damage across the 𝗀𝗁𝗏 municipality. I was here 5 months ago when the storms ravaged parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Today, we're still dealing with the destruction. Surely people deserve much better. Water and sanitation infrastructure collapsed in some parts of the city. The result is a raw sewage crisis.
It brought us like sickness inside us. We can't breathe at times.
𝗀𝗁cie𝗿𝗆𝗆 lives next to the 𝗀𝗁𝗏 River in the Durban suburb of Phoenix. This has been her daily reality since April.
And you see, when you take a plate of food to eat, that smell is coming right inside the house. You can't leave our doors open.
And it's the same at a number of sites all over Durban. Raw sewage flowing into streams, rivers, and eventually the ocean. Months later, 𝗀𝗁𝗏 is living with the consequences. Marine and environmental scientist Nicole Martins has been running independent water tests since January this year along a number of Durban's beaches and rivers.
So if you have a look at the trends of results, we were seeing non-compliance before the floods, just as much as we are seeing it after the floods as well.
The city's water crisis is not new. It's been a long time coming.
It was about to happen. If the floods didn't happen in the next year or two, everything would have come down eventually anyway.
The insider is a municipal employee with more than a decade's experience. He says the city is experiencing a crisis caused by aging infrastructure and poor maintenance.
A lot of the equipment is very, very old, and it has not been renewed or replaced. The equipment is taken out, patched up, and put straight back. There is no backup equipment.
For this investigation, we ventured into some of the city's critical infrastructure sites, from water reservoirs to pump stations and sewage treatment plants. Over 4 days, we went to 27 locations along the KZN coast, from 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀 to Queensborough, to Phoenix, Blackburn and Westbrook, secretly capturing clips showing a shocking lack of maintenance, crippled infrastructure and brazen vandalism. Reservoirs across the city store water for public consumption. We managed to freely walk into 3 of these facilities. Gates open, we were able to lift the lids on water tanks, those that had lids, that is. Pumps were easily accessible, some control rooms didn't even have locks. And while there were guards at some sites, they weren't always easy to spot.
What are you guys doing here?
At this North Coast pump station, there is a guard and a fence, well, part of it. It's not operational and raw sewage seeps into the stream. The sites we visited are not isolated. At the time of our investigation, close to 40 water reservoirs were vandalized. Of the city's 247 pump stations, around 70 were overflowing and another 50 destroyed by vandals.
They have been vandalized prior to the floods, and they just haven't been repaired. One pump station, it's not working, and its pollution, it ends up somewhere.
And that somewhere, more often than not, is the sea.
Yeah. So seeing that and smelling that, it's no surprise that this beach remains closed.
While filming in September, independent tests showed an E. coli count of more than 24,000 at 𝗀𝗁𝗏 Beach. An acceptable count for recreational use is 500, and the readings have improved since.
What we have been finding over the last couple months is that more often than not, these counts have been exceeding that limit.
High levels of sewage contamination can also cause fish kills. These clips were taken along the 𝗀𝗁𝗏 River. Canoeist Steve Cohen is from Durbanites Against Pollution.
Just even with the naked eye, one would think this water looks, beautiful and serene and you can just jump in.
Yeah, looks can be deceptive. This water is highly contaminated. Nearly every single week for months now, it's been exceptionally high readings.
A recent reading at the Kingfisher Canoe Club showed an E. coli count of a whopping 435,000, way over the accepted recreational use standard.
It's now become so chronic that, you enter the water at your own risk. There's just a lot of anecdotal evidence of people getting sick all the time from the poor water quality.
The 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀 pump station is near an informal settlement called Blackburn. It's been out of service since the April floods.
Yo, this looks awful. We got a river of raw sewage running down through here into the 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀 estuary, and that goes out onto the 𝗀𝗀𝗶𝘀 beach.
Dr. Mark Graham is a water resource scientist. eThekwini's water crisis isn't unique. Crumbling infrastructure is an issue across the country.
It's probably the worst I've seen professionally in working in water for this last 30-odd years. Clearly the floods have had an impact, but we should never have got to the state where the sewage infrastructure is in such a poor state that we're actually now reaping those ill rewards.
It comes down to inadequate long-term maintenance and not taking care of ecological infrastructure.
That's looking after the river systems, which are typically where the sewer lines are running. And the more upstream catchment pressure points, overdevelopment, not looking after those riparian corridors, that's really causing a lot of the problems.
Regulation and monitoring of the water sector falls on the Department of Water and Sanitation. 𝗀𝗍𝗄𝗏 is the KZN provincial head.
Do you think the city is coping?
Well, it would appear from what we see of late that the city would really need to take drastic measures to remedy some of these situations. They've moved from a low vulnerability to a high vulnerability municipality.
It's up to 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗏's department to keep the city in line. The first step is to issue non-compliance directives and notices and hope that the city comes up with a plan.
We've issued the city with a number of directives in the recent past.
What can your department then do to hold the city accountable?
We are able to work with other departments to ensure that further action is taken. Environmental affairs have fines and others, and we are able to seek court interdicts, etc., to ensure that they implement the action plans.
eThekwini municipality has plans, but does it have the money?
There is a budget, but every year the budget becomes less and less. The demand is getting greater. You can't compare it with wear and tear. You can't compare it with vandalism. You can't compare it with storms.
Ednick Msweli is eThekwini municipality's head of water and sanitation. He concedes the city is struggling.
At the end of the day, whatever you want to do, you need money, because it's just clear the city does not have the money that's required.
Municipalities should be allocating 5 to 8% of budgets to water and sanitation.
We are around, I think, 5% or less.
Is it being set aside?
Usually it's close to $1 billion for water and sanitation. Like in the current financial years, we are around 900 million. We should be spending close to 2 billion rand a year. And not for 1 year, that is forever. If we really wanted to have an infrastructure that's not going to fail.
It was a perfect storm waiting to happen, with aging infrastructure on the brink of collapse and criminal elements that are just not doing the city any favors. During our investigation, we saw a number of inactive pump stations. This one in Westbrook was vandalized at least a year ago. It's not working, yet there is still sewage coming into it. At 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗏 Lake in central Durban, the defunct pump station is right next to an informal settlement. It's clearly a health hazard.
This is the handiwork of vandals. They've stripped and taken anything of value. And it's been like this for years, long before the storms earlier this year.
Electrical components, cabling, and even pumps vandalized and stolen, leaving this pump station inoperable.
And when pump stations don't work, this is the result: raw sewage flowing into the streets.
𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗱 lives opposite the Johanna Road pump station.
How long has it been like this? The pump station ingasebenzi ba?
The pump station, ngithi misihlale 5 years ingasebenzi, kathi isebenza.
But before the city can repair pumps, it needs to spend money on securing these sites. We showed 𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗍 our undercover footage.
Normal citizen walks into a pump station, walks into a sewer works, just like that. Gates are not closed. It's unacceptable.
I think you're raising a valid point. So it's a challenge that needs attention. Vandalism is killing us.
But a lack of resources is also killing 𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗶𝗴𝗶. According to internal reports during the month of September, only 3 wastewater treatment works were operating at full capacity. These visuals are of the 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀 wastewater treatment works. Parts of it have been destroyed. In Queensborough, you can see water and sanitation pipes completely taken out in the storms.
Process of restoring them, right, is underway. There is a backlog in terms of the replacement of infrastructure. It's something that the city is aware of now, and they are prioritizing. I think sometimes it's just competing priorities that make it difficult.
While the municipality is eager to get tourism back on track, some argue the city is getting ahead of itself, making decisions based on E. coli count samples.
That single grab sample doesn't tell you the big picture. It's just a single snapshot. So, they may get an indication that it's reasonably acceptable, but the next day there could be a change in water currents and that sort of thing, and the quality changes.
Closed beaches means no tourism, and no tourism means no revenue. And with a city that relies so heavily on tourism, you would think fixing the infrastructure would be a priority.
So we need our beaches to work for the economy of this city. We opened maybe half of them because we attended to the problems that were causing those beaches to be closed.
Less than a week after that interview, the authorities had a change of heart and a number of beaches were closed again. It's a constant back and forth.
It's a very real risk that the city is unable to turn this around, and yeah, the 𝗀𝗁𝗍𝗶𝗴𝗶 will be no more. Durban will not be known as a tourism destination anymore.
Thanks for watching. Have you heard about our new podcast? It's like Carte Blanche, but without the Sunday blues. Find Carte Blanche the podcast with new episodes uploaded weekdays on all major podcast platforms. Unique stories, unique perspectives, wherever you go.